Banned and blacklisted at immigration at the airport flying into the Philippines. I'm going to tell you the true story of a gentleman that I spoke to about 2 weeks ago on how that happened, how he was put into a detention cell, and how immigration shipped him back to America, his point of origin, and what eventually happened to him, and all the twists and turns in between. Coming up in the video. So how does one get deported at the airport and never make it into the Philippines other than the detention cell at immigration? That is the tale I'm going to tell as it was told to me, to the best of my recollection. And for the sake of this gentleman's anonymity, I am going to refer to him as Joe Blow. And so Joe Blow, a little background on him, he's a 20-plus year veteran, United States military. When he was deployed, he became very injured. The details of the injury I don't pretend to know, but I know that it affected his back, and he needs surgery to correct it. He has about 2 or 3 months before he can have the surgery due to scheduling issues with the VA. So, that being said, prior to all of this happening, he had been online for a couple of years, chatting with women over here in the Philippines. And after a period of time, he eventually landed on a woman that he felt checked all the boxes. And so he was very anxious to meet her in person. He was very anxious to come to the Philippines, and he wanted to do what we recommend a lot here on YouTube, is before you commit to anything, come out and take a look around, see if you like the country or the area, and more importantly, if you're going to enter into some sort of relationship with someone, as he's going to, where she's going to meet him at the airport, you better make sure that the connection that you had with her online is as good or hopefully better when you meet each other in person. And that was his plan. And he figured, you know what, this time frame that I've got, now I'm disabled, I'm basically retired from the military. He had some other business interests and some other income streams also, and some investments. He said this would be the perfect time for me to come out to the Philippines. I can see the Philippines, I can see if I like it. I can, more importantly, I can meet this woman that I've been chatting with for an extended period of time, and make sure that we have chemistry and that we like each other as much in person as we appeared to like each other online. So he had a couple of month window there, and he said, this is what I'll do. I'll go to the Philippines, I'll meet her, I'll spend a month and a half, I'll fly back to America, I'll have my surgery. Once I recover from that, I will simply go back to the Philippines, if indeed the first two things happen. I like the Philippines, and I like the woman, and everything's copacetic. So, he gets on his plane ride, and it ended up being about 30 hours due to connecting flights. And by the time he got off the plane, he was a wreck physically. He was in a lot of pain. None of the painkillers that they were giving him was touching it. And, 30 hours of being with, through the airports and the plane ride itself and the guy sitting next to you, the drill, and the lousy food. He was really in a little cranky, I'll say, mood by the time he deplaned and got in line at immigration. Well, when he finally gets through the long line at immigration, he presents his passport. He's got his little e-travel thing on his phone. He figures he's cool for school. And the woman behind the counter at immigration, the immigration officer, was a female. She said, sir, where is your declaration page? And he goes, what declaration page? And it's a form that the airlines, they always give it to me, that takes 2 minutes to fill out, it must. It asks, are you bringing more than $10,000? Do you have any fruits and vegetables? All these other little questions about yourself. And I've always taken it and just checked off, no, 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 no. And you have to hand that in along with the passport and the e-travel widget that you have on your phone. So he didn't have that. And he says, well, I don't have it. And he started to lose his cool. His back was killing him. His feet were hurting. And he started to raise his voice. And what is this all about? Why do I have to have that? And this and that and the other. And basically acting like a prick. Now, even though I've met this guy, and he's not a prick, but at that stage of the game, at that moment in time, the worst in him was coming out. I have to confess, I've had a few moments like that myself. However, so she stood her ground. She said, well, you're not getting in until you fill out a declaration page. Where do I get one of those? Well, you go see that lady over there, sir. And so he went out of the line, went and saw that lady, and sure enough, she had a bunch of them right there, and she actually helped him fill it out. And then he took his declaration page, and he went right back to the front of the line and said, okay, I've got it. And the immigration officer, because of his attitude when he walked away, she said, no, bucko, you need to get back in the back of the line. And that's when he hit the ceiling. And he just lost it. He wasn't really directing his insults or his vulgarities, what am I trying to say? His curse words. He was more or less barking at the moon. Like, why the F is this happening to me? What did this BS, blah, 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 blah. Raising hell, loud voice. And guess what? They said, sir, come with us. We don't want you in our country. And they put him in a detention cell because of his temper and his temperament, the words that he was using, the elevated voice, the shouting. And it's like, we don't need you, pal. You're an ugly expat. And they put him in detention, and they shipped him back to America, which he had to pay for. That was made perfectly clear. You can either pay for a ticket back home, or you can sit here. What do you want to do? And you'll sit here until you do in this detention center, which is not a pretty place. So he bought the ticket. Long story short, he said he had 2 layovers, I forget what countries, and each layover, he was escorted into their detention center. He was accompanied by people the whole way back home. And he said each detention center was worse than the last one. He says, you don't want to know what they call a toilet in a detention center. You don't want to know the conditions and the heat level and all this and all that. Well, he went through 3 of those, and finally he got back home. Now this is where the story takes a real twist. He calls this woman up, and she's frantic because she was waiting at the airport for him, and he lets her know what happened. And then he says, hang on, give me a couple of days and I'll figure something out. So he did. He said, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna fly to Thailand, and you're gonna fly to Thailand. And you can bring your mom or your cousin or something with you for safety reasons. And bada boom, bada bing, I'll pay for your flight. I'll pay for your hotel. I'll book a room at the same hotel. We'll keep it as legitimate as we could possibly make it. And then we can finally meet. And at least that part's done. And then I will go to America after we spend a month or so in Thailand, whatever. All right, so he goes through all that expense. He flies to Thailand. She goes to the airport with her girlfriend or her cousin or somebody, 2 tickets, and she gets offloaded. And they said, no way, sweetheart. You've never been out of the country. Filipinos, or Filipinas, and Filipinos, for that matter, have a very poor track record for leaving the country and not coming back. I went through hell and earth to get my wife out of the country with me, and I accompanied her when she was my girlfriend. And we had a stack of documents like this, and we got by just the skin of our teeth. So I can only imagine when this young lady shows up and wants to go to Thailand, and they just offload you. And so they asked her, why do you want to go to Thailand? This is really interesting. And she said, well, because I want to meet my boyfriend. And they go, well, why are you going to Thailand to meet him? Why doesn't he come here to meet you? Well, he's been blacklisted. And they said, really? What's his name? And so she told them his name, and they went in the computer there at immigration where they were not going to let her on the plane and said, he's not on the blacklist. I don't know what you're talking about. So she goes home. He's out $5,000 or whatever it is for her ticket in a hotel room that he prepaid for. He's laying in Thailand, and he goes, you mean, so they have the conversation, and he says, really? I'm not on a blacklist? And she said, no, sweetheart, I just talked to the lady, they looked your name up, and you're not there. So he says, okay. So he books a flight from Thailand right back to the Philippines, and now he's learned his lesson. He's got all the paperwork. He's got his declaration. He's got his passport. He's got his e-travel thing. He's all set. And more importantly, he's got a big happy smile on his face. First of all, it's only a 3-hour flight from Thailand. And back hurting or not hurting, he knows not to raise any kind of ruckus and in fact be syrupy sweet. And guess what? He gets up to immigration. They look at all of his stuff. They stamp his passport, and they said, welcome to the Philippines. And he went and met the woman. And then he called me up via another friend, and we had lunch, and he told me this story. He's been here for a number of, now he can't go back to America to have the surgery because after about 2 or 3 months of running around here, he is now on the blacklist. That took time. The bureaucracy, the computer system, whatever you want to call it out here, runs at a snail's pace. So this dude was blacklisted, but never made it into any search engines or systems that stated what just happened to him. So now he is on the blacklist, and he's here in the Philippines. He is using a friend of a friend that has a connection somewhere with somebody, I won't get into too many details on that, who is working to get him off of the blacklist. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, he's having a great relationship with the young lady that he met. They're having fun, they're traveling around, and he's just got to be super cautious about his situation and his status here while in the Philippines. It's going to cost him in excess of $10,000, to my understanding, to get taken off of the blacklist. It's not what you know, it's who you know, if you catch my drift. And so that is the story of getting blacklisted here in the Philippines at the airport. Moral of the story, always treat people with respect. That's just a good rule to follow in life. But for those of you thinking about coming over here or living here, The guys that have these kind of issues are the guys with short fuses and tempers. Now, he had the short fuse and the temper generated by this chronic pain that he was experiencing. However, he learned his lesson, and hopefully somebody here watching this video has possibly learned a lesson themselves. Be aware of your temperament. When you're coming through or dealing with any kind of bureaucracy, especially immigration, mind your manners. Do like they taught us in kindergarten. Be nice to your neighbor and take a nap. I'll see you guys in the next video.